Courage isn't about the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act boldly in spite of it. What is up, champions? Welcome to another episode of Champion Reads, where we talk about best-selling books and their best principles to help you out with your best life. I am your co-host, Willie Blake. I am here with the other co-host, Mr. Ian Sturmer. And today we're jumping into the last episode of High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. This is our 5th episode for this book, and it's we don't get 5 episodes out of a book often, but when we do, we know that it's a good book. So we went over several of the principles over the last several episodes that we did. We did Seek Clarity, the energy. We talked about the other two that are not popping in my head. So today we're going to talk about the wonderful develop influence, as well as demonstrate courage. The last 2 principles Brendon talks about. And I'll just start out with the story that came to my mind. So on Tuesday, I had the opportunity to be at a speaker showcase where I was able to give my 20-minute keynote. And I remember standing behind stage. There's a black curtain, and the wonderful Marianne Hickman was standing on stage being the MC. And before I came out on stage, I was behind a thin black curtain to where people couldn't see me, but I could vaguely see the audience. And usually what happens is I am a little antsy, my heart's racing, adrenaline pumping, but I felt very calm just standing there. And I thought about everything that had happened up to that point. I thought of all the mistakes that I've made, all the challenges that I had faced, the influence that I had, and that through it all, every single time, the thing I did not regret was that I showed up, that I had the courage to fight half the battle, which was showing up. And it's just amazing that when we talk about high performance, when we talk about these habits and the ability to reach goals and do it at an accelerated rate, it's amazing to me that really it comes down to when you demonstrate courage, it's never about the fear being absent. It's always about when you have the fear, still taking that bold action in spite of it being there. So I'll start off with that as we start the discussion.
Yeah, I think you said, if there's no fear, then there's no courage. Courage has to have fear involved in it. Excuse me. And then you said something else about performance. Courage takes performance. You have to actually go out and do something. It actually takes an action going forward to have courage. You can't have courage sitting quietly in your chair at home. Courage requires you to take a step forward, to go out and do something. So I had years ago, I had a job interview that I went to. It was a sales interview, and I was a little bit more shy back then. And the guy giving the interview made the comment, "You seem a little bit shy. How are you going to do in sales and going out to talk to people?" So in my interview way, I said, well, when the situation comes up, I just, I fit the situation that I need. So he says, "Oh, so you chameleon." So I didn't know chameleon was a verb, but sure, yeah, I do that. So he said, "Okay, go talk to that person," as he pointed over, and there was another employee just walking down the hall. So at that point, I had to stand up, go over, and say something to this stranger who was just walking down the hall on his way to do something else. And Standing up was terrifying to me. From that sitting position to stand up and take that first 2 steps. But I really had no choice at that point but to take those steps, because I'm trying to apply for a job and the interviewer tells me to do it. But the 3rd step wasn't that bad. And the 4th step was fine. So it was that initial bit that took the courage to move forward. And then once the action was in play, it really wasn't that bad. Yes, I fumbled my words a little bit, but the courage, just like rolling a stone up a hill, it's that first initial one that's difficult. Then it becomes pretty easy once you get that momentum.
Yeah. And it's, that reminds me of when I was on my mission, my LDS mission, where we would knock door to door and people would be like, isn't that hard just to go knock door to door? And I said, can be, for sure. And then they asked, what's the hardest part? And I said, the hardest part was getting out of the car. It's that first step, the first thing that we do to take to be able to do the courageous thing that is always the hardest, right? And so whether it's at a job interview, whether it's about to stand on stage, whether it's about to hit record on recording a podcast, the hardest thing is doing that first action. Everything else after that then might still be hard, but gets the added benefit of momentum from the first thing that gets done. And that momentum is something that's very undervalued that we take and don't really realize, but that gives us like tremendous leverage as we do the other steps.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm gonna pose a question here, and I'll give a brief answer myself, and then I'll turn it over to you for it. Cool. How do you get that first step? How do you prepare yourself? How do you get the courage to take that first step, to get out of the car, to push that curtain to the side, to walk out? I'm going to give my answer first, that you need to make your decisions before the situation arises. So if you practice in your mind, you visualize it, you build up your excitement for it, you prepare, whether it's preparing for the worst case scenarios. What do you do if you forget your words on stage? What do you do if somebody yells at you when you knock on the door? And go through those things ahead of time. Get that mindset. I think that gives you that courage so that when the action happens, you're ready for it. You don't have to stop and say, what am I going to do? How can I do this? Because you've already prepared that ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I really like that. The preparedness beforehand, because it's true. You got to prepare yourself beforehand. How do you prepare yourself beforehand? It depends what you're doing. But in the basic of it, prepare in the way in which a great example, role playing. One of the bane of my existence when I am trying to do it with other people to try to get mistakes out. But without a doubt, every time is the most effective thing when it gets there. Because I would rather, I say this, but then I'd never want to role play. I would rather role play with somebody and mess up, do all the mistakes there, then go out into the real world thing, whatever it is, and then make a mistake in public. To me, that's just common sense. I would rather make the mistake with somebody in private than amongst a bunch of people in public. And then it takes courage to actually start the role play, because again, role play is the bane of my existence, but it does help out a lot. So role playing is a great way to be able to get the practice in. And yeah, you unmute it. I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh yeah, role playing is definitely the first one. It just made me think, if you were going to give a piano recital, and we had a piano recital today to do, and we both went out there with 2 pianos. it would be a challenge because I don't know how to play the piano. So I think perhaps I would need to practice a whole lot before I actually went out to do that. And the same as we would never schedule a piano recital and go out there without actually learning how to play the piano and practicing a whole lot. Excuse me. Why would we go into a business meeting without practicing? Why would we give a sales pitch to a client without practicing? Why would we do anything professional without practicing? It's like a piano recital if you can't play the piano, or going parachuting without putting on a parachute first, or without learning how to pull the cord. It just makes sense that you have to practice. You have to learn the skills. And once you do those, bear with me with this cough. I apologize, listeners. You have to have the knowledge yourself. That builds that confidence. That builds that courage within you. And I'll give a last example before I turn it back to you. But years ago, I started doing life insurance. And I was talking with my trainer as I was preparing to go into my first meeting, first client presentation. Said, I just don't feel like I know what I'm doing here. And he said, you've gone through all of the training for this. Just by the fact that you've gotten licensed and passed the licensing exam means you know more about life insurance than any client you were going to go talk to, period. I said, oh, wow, I guess I actually did know something about it. So, courage comes from preparation. Courage comes from knowing what you're facing, taking the time to learn about it, to prepare yourself mentally. Practice, make your decisions before the action is required. So that really, if you're prepared, I think there's a scriptural thing in there somewhere. If you're prepared, you shall not fear. And one put in the comments if they know where that one comes from, but it seems to pop in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. A quote that I hear a myth that I hear often is that when we get there, we will rise to the level of the occasion. That has never happened to me. And I don't think it's ever happened to anyone. What the quote that comes to my mind is that we don't rise to the level of the situation. We dial down to the level of our preparedness. So if we are prepared, we go back to the level of how much we are prepared. So if we know, if we have researched and studied everything, and we go out and we get practice with it and experience with it, and then finally we get to the moment, the big showcase thing of when it's going to happen, our level of preparedness is right up with raising to the level of the opportunity, and we're able to shine and thrive, and it goes great. But if we just take it as another thing happening, don't prepare for it, don't get the stuff ready, well, then we're not going to raise to the occasion. We're going to fall back to our preparation. And so when a lot of people go out and they're just like, let's hit the stage, let's make this big event and opportunity happen. That is great. That is part of the battle. But I'd also say that the way to shine the most when it gets to that moment is how much effort you put into your preparation.
Yeah, I love that. And if I can reword just a little bit something you just said there.
Please.
You will rise to the level of your preparation.
There you go.
I like that better than falling down to the level of preparation. Whatever you prepared for, you can rise to that level. But it's really hard to rise above the level of your preparation. Back to the old piano recital, if you prepare one piece to play, you're not going to rise to the level of suddenly playing another piece that you've never seen or heard. You can only rise as far as you prepared.
Yeah.
And I think that's where courage is. You've got to know what you're prepared for, what's going to happen. I just keep coming back to it's all preparation. And I hadn't really thought about courage as just being preparation until we started this discussion. but I think that's what it is. You can push it a little further and a little further, but you've got to be prepared first. You've got to be putting forth the the effort and the work that's required to be prepared for it. I know I've tried to go up and give a short speech without preparing anything, or a short lesson or something, and it doesn't go very well if I don't take the time to prepare it. Even though I may have done them before, I've still got to stop and prepare before each one to be ready for it. So I don't know. I feel like I've kind of hit my whole thing about be prepared, the old Boy Scout motto. Then you don't need to worry as much.
Yeah. Be prepared. Boom. Mic drop. That's it. We're all good. End of episode. See y'all later. You're right, Ian. I'm realizing it more too in our discussion, how much preparedness actually affects the courage that we are able to output. And I think a lot of it can go to when we are scared, there's the fear, and I think mostly the fear of the unknown. Because it goes back to that thing of like, we're not scared of the dark, we're scared of what could be in the dark. We're not scared of like what's going to happen. What's going to happen. The fear is the unknown of what's going to happen. We're not scared of heights. We're just scared of falling at a height if it happens, right? And so it's just like the fear of, when it comes to needing courage and doing these things, it's the fear of the unknown part. And so if we can take more of the unknown out, as we do with preparation, when we research, when we role play, when we interview mentors or watch things from coaches, and that takes more out of the unknown, which then lessens the fear impact, which then builds more courage, to where once your courage is above the fear, then you can just act out boldly with it. That was a very raw thought, so I'm going to leave it right at that.
I like that. It's a progression of what we're doing here. And you've got to start out with little steps, and realize that you can do a small thing, and you make a bigger thing and a bigger thing and a bigger thing. And you develop that courage, step by step. Excuse me. I'm going to turn it back to you while I cough here.
No, you're good. You're good. I think this would be a great transition, because we talked a lot about courage and preparation. Great transition for the last third of this episode to talk about influence, the other habit that Brendon Burchard talks about. Because you got to have when you have courage, you're able to have more influence, right? When you're more prepared, you're able to then act in the way that you're wanting to act whenever said thing arises. Like with my keynote that I had on Tuesday, I heard from a lot of people afterwards that greatly influenced them and made them think differently. That wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the courage to be able to get up on stage. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't prepare so much beforehand. And not only prepare as in like standing in front of the mirror doing it, or I put this on my Instagram story where I had literally my kids' stuffed animals on their bunk bed, and I was talking to the stuffed animals practicing.
Love
right?
that.
It's not just the practicing, but it's also the nitty gritty of it, of the way that the story is told, like where you bring the audience into the emotion deep, where you have lessons that you took out of it, to where you finish off the hero's journey, to where you have a call to action. And then not only that part, but then you jump into just like the topic of it. And is it actually influential? Is it something that relates to everybody, or is it very niche to a specific amount of people? And so there's like so much. That's just the speaking part, let alone going into like the different industries that people go into, or the different projects that people work on. When preparation meets opportunity, that's where I think true influence can come into play.
Absolutely. And I think we're jumping back to that word preparation again with influence. I think your influence builds up in stages. First of all, you've got to be good at something. So, I was at your speech you gave the other day and loved that. You did a great job, by the way. So kudos on that one.
Thank you.
And it was a smaller stage, but you build up an influence with the people in that stage and the people there to be ready for the next one, because you've shown you can do it. You've got the confidence in your influence to be ready for the next stage with a couple thousand people out there. And I think that influence as you meet with one level of people, and when I think of influence, I'm kind of thinking almost of a sales type thing or a consulting that a lot of us are involved in, and probably a lot of our listeners are in this sphere as well. If you're looking for a client, you're trying to build your sphere of influence. You don't immediately go and book a half-hour TV spot for an infomercial before you've ever landed a client, before you've ever done a sales pitch. I think you build an influence with the people around you, and that's going to it's going to give you the confidence you need, but it's also going to build that reputation that you have so that you can expand to a bigger one and a bigger one. It's the same as the testimonials we have on our websites and positive comments and likes that we have on YouTube and Instagram and these type of things. We build up this influence a little bit at a time so that we can go confidently to a bigger fish, so to speak, and be ready to say, hey, I can do this. This is what I've done. It's preparation ahead of time. It's building step upon step, but it's not resting on your laurels. It's not saying, I got my first $1,000 client or $5,000 client, so this is where I'm at. I'm always going to stay here. Yes, no, I got $1,000 client, so now I can go pitch my $2,000 client. I got my $2,000 client, now I can go pitch my $10,000 client. Got my $10,000 client, now I can go pitch my $100,000 client. And once I get my $1 million client, I'm ready to sit back and relax. But until then, I'll keep working at it.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I also think of influence, I think of like there's two sides of it. Influence doesn't always mean good. Like we talk about influencers on the internet some of the times, and we're like, they're not always good influence for our kids. Ian, you and I both have kids. They're not great influence for our kids. I'd probably say most of them aren't good influence for our kids because they're mostly trying to influence in a different way than we value.
Sadly, yeah.
Yeah, sadly, yeah. And so it's like when it comes to influence, there's a great power that comes with it. Ian, I don't know if I was talking with you or I was talking with someone else. No, I was talking with someone else. And they asked me about, maybe it was you, about coaching. And they asked, like, is it like how great is coaching? And obviously it's fantastic. And they said, what's one of the downsides of coaching? And I got very real with them for a moment. And I told them that when you take on coaching, success life coaching, anything of that niche, you are literally taking the lives of people into your own hands. Because when people want you as a coach, they are going to listen to the things that you say. And if the things that you say are things that might be detrimental to them and then they act on it, then you are very liable for what happens. And so when they asked me about the downside of coaching, I said, I am literally putting the lives of people into my own hands. And that's why I don't think many people are able to take on real coaching, is because they don't realize the extremity of what coaching actually is, because you have of great influence on these people. But the people who rise to the occasion and who still want to, despite that being in there, those are true individuals who are creating influence, good influence for other people, because it's a real thing. It's a real thing that's out there. But when you take it seriously and truly still want to bring light, bring the sparks, share your candle with other people, then it's the other side of it is also outstanding in the results.
Yeah, that's a hugely important point you're bringing up there. And glad you brought that one up. So after the speaking event you were at, I was talking with one of the vendors who was there. And she has a company which helps to train coaches. And we got talking a little bit about that. And, you know, I've met a lot of life coaches whose pitch is something like this. I struggled a lot in life and now I'm happy. So I'm here to teach other people how to better their lives. Thought, well, that's nice, but are you really qualified to do this? You know, maybe you should take some classes and learn some real strategies, some effectiveness that's been proven to help move people forward. And as I talked with this lady about what she did and really the need to have some certifications for some of these things, there's a big part to it. You've got to be, I'm going back to prepared again. If you're going to take that influence you have on someone, there's a responsibility that you take upon yourself. You know, a simple thing, if you're going to charge somebody to come listen to your piano recital, you better have learned to play the piano and be good enough to charge that. If you're going to take control of somebody's life, and maybe take control is not the right word to use for that one with coaching somebody, but you're going to help them with their life, you've got a potential to do great harm when they put that trust in you. So along with developing influence, and I'm going to equate influence with trust to a certain amount here. As you build that influence, you build that trust, you better have the wherewithal to back up what you're doing. You better have the actual skills that you say you are. And that takes a lot of humility, I think, to realize when we have the skills we need and when we don't have the skills we need. When do we need to step back and say, this is going to take it to a level I'm not prepared for yet. And then we get prepared so we can help the next client. But there's a courage in stepping back from our level of influence as well sometimes. And I may be going the opposite direction. At least I had planned on talking about this, but courage can be the courage to step up and say yes, and the courage to step back and say no sometimes.
Yeah. The courage to say no. One of the speakers that were there, her name was Nicole, and she said something that really stuck out to me. She said that no is a full sentence. And I love it because no truly is a full sentence. When we say no to something, that should remain definite, right? If we say that we don't want something, let us not want it. Let us not try to be convinced otherwise of us not wanting it. It goes back to the saying of, it's like higher fat. No, I'm thinking of a job thing. Make decisions fast, change them slowly. Meaning like trust your gut instinct, trust the preparation you've done, make decisions quick. But then as you go on and information comes in that, change them slowly because it could rock. I'm trying to remember what point I was making with that. But you're right, Ian. You're right. With influence, with courage, with all of this, and as we wrap up this episode with our final thoughts, it is of true importance that when we put ourselves into the position of influence in other people, developing influence, and then us demonstrating courage, and while we are influential, helping others demonstrate courage, let us take it for what it is that we are changing lives. So let us change lives for the best version of themselves. Not to make money, not to gain followers, not to have watch time or likes on social media, but to truly illuminate the best version of themselves. And that's my complete thought.
Yeah, love that. And I think that just kind of sums it up. Developing influence, developing courage, it's preparing ahead of time. It's doing the work necessary so that we're confident in all of those things. We're confident in our courage. We're confident in our abilities. We're confident in how we can help other people. And we're constantly learning and growing to make that better and better. So I'll leave it at that.
There you go. And with that, champions, that is another episode of Champion Reads. If you found inspiration in this episode, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms. As well, go to our website, mychampionscircle.com, where you'll be able to find a link to our podcast, link to our socials, and everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. Until next time, champions, continue to be a better version of yourself. Continue to be the champions in your own lives. And always remember that it is through preparation in which we gain courage and influence. We'll see you on the next episode of Champion Reads.